We are actually mammals. We're really smart. We think too much, but we're mammals.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hersh Rephun, and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. My guest today on Truth Tastes Funny is Dr. Amy Albright. Dr. Amy doesn't just talk about human potential. She rewires it. Blending neuroscience, business strategy, and spirituality, she's helping high-level leaders align their brains, their energy, and their values for next-level performance. As co-founder of Holon, she is pioneering tech-driven brain optimization that delivers clarity, resilience, and real transformation fast. So if you've ever wondered what happens when science meets consciousness and actually works, you're about to find out. Welcome, Dr. Amy, to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
It's great to have you. You know, I want to cover a lot of different things in this conversation because as you know, as we've talked about, I'm fascinated by consciousness, human design, a little bit of all of these things that go into being a complete person, a full human being. And I think that maybe it's even fair to say that a lot of the stresses, a lot of the things that we're going through in our lives these days are compounded by not listening to ourselves or to our bodies or to our brains and we're second guessing everything. We're loading information on top of everything else. Give me first your kind of take on the world today and how it affects, like the modern nervous system.
Yeah. I mean, the things that we already know, right? Moving too fast, being on screens, being sedentary. But I think that there's a lot that goes even beyond that, which is maybe less talked about. So we are taught that we are separate and isolated. There was a lot of societal change that happened. A big shift was in the 1950s, but even before that, let's say in the last 200 years with Industrial Revolution, we decided that we should live not in villages or in multi-generational families here, but in isolated little bubbles. And that inside of that bubble, we were supposed to source everything, our joy, our finances, our support systems. And so people are raising kids without community. They're living, maybe they have friends that they hang out with, but it's different than real community where we used to live close to the land and we understood that we live or die based on how close our relationships are.
Yeah, I would also just throw in there that implies a level of civic responsibility that I think we also don't feel these days. And so we're not really, I mean, I'm speaking generally, but as a society, we're not always raised to believe that the community is there for us, or that we do have certain obligations as children that our parents may foist upon us in one way or another, but it doesn't always feel like it's an organic, civic-minded, we are part of a community
Right.
feeling.
I think that people that live in rural spots or places that have extreme weather still live in that more, depending. I mean, I live in the mountains of Northern California, and when we had a massive snowstorm and there were trees downed over every road, we were in community. We were helping to dig each other out. We were checking on each other. We were, you have to make sure you have your basics, right? Not everybody had electricity and warmth and things like that were really hard. But I think that a lot of the way that we've lived, I spent the majority of my life down in Southern California, and everybody's very insular, and nobody wants to make eye contact or talk to each other. And so to go back to the stresses that we're under, we are actually mammals. We're really smart. We think too much, but we're mammals. And we need to remember that we have certain biological needs and that, you know, our ancestors died if they did not know how to live deeply inside of community is a very real thing that still exists inside of our body. But for some reason, based on all of the pressures and whatever belief structures and all the things that are there, we believe that we're now inside of a separatist reality, that we exist as something separate. And that automatically puts stress on our nervous system. It automatically puts stress that we can't necessarily understand because the kind of nervous system stress that it is subconscious, primal, mammalian stress. So that's something else that most people maybe are missing right now that I think is a really important part. Yes, our phones or whatever, and yeah, I get it. We need to sleep more and have more sunshine. Everybody's talking about it, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but really fostering deep community relationships where we would put the needs of the whole above in a certain moment our own personal needs, right? My neighbor came over and was helping me, and she could have been chilling out at home and not done that, but she came over and helped me, and now we have a much deeper relationship, and she knows that I will help her, right? And how much does
Yeah.
that do for that primal part of ourselves? It's tremendous because we're not meant to do it alone. We're actually inside of an interconnected universe. There isn't a
Well,
separation, and so the illusion is painful.
yeah. Yeah. And let's talk about roles that we play, um, because I think it's important for the audience to understand as a clinician, as someone who has practiced a lot of different kinds of medicine and understands neuroscience, but is also acting as kind of a bridge
Hmm.
to the instinctual, the practical, and of course the mystical.
Hmm.
How did you come to this kind of holistic uh, worldview, if you will?
Yeah, so just for people who maybe have a medium-sized appetite for anything woo or spiritual, just to really rewind the story, I started out as an absolute atheist, and I was studying neurosciences in my undergraduate, and also in my very first year of university, I had a massive spiritual awakening, which is very unusual for, I mean, I wasn't looking for a spiritual awakening. I wasn't on a quest. It just happened.
Right.
And so it was a shock to my system. And I ended up broadening my focus to not just studying neurosciences, but to also understanding the sacred and indigenous rites of passage and shamanism and the way that we've lived through time, which is the study of anthropology, which another way to say that is what does it mean to be essentially at the most core to be human? Right? Because we
Mm,
have to look over a large data set, not just the being human in this moment, but what's it been to be human for the last 100,000 years, everywhere, anywhere in the world. And that's where we come to a real understanding. So the blend of all of that began for me at 18 when I began an active study of consciousness while studying indigenous ways of being and then also the brain all at the same time. And it just never unwove itself. And I would say that as another element of that, I also understood because I was studying to be a researching professor in the brain. And so it was a very rigorous course of study. And what I realized is that science is not perfect and that there's
yeah.
ways to, people to call it massage the data, or, that the lens by which we look at the world helps us to understand. But it also is by default a smaller lens than the total of what is true. Right.
Yeah.
So we've been really wrong with science before, lots and lots of ways. We thought low fat was great, and then we ended up with massive obesity and diabetes, and we thought that smoking was okay at one point, and gee, it turns out not so much. And like,
Well, that is, yeah, that by the way, Amy, is one of the drivers behind my writing my book Selling the Truth was that truth is supposed to be absolute,
hmm
and and evident. And we're supposed to have, as a society, a barometer that, a bellwether that kind of sets the parameters for us. And many would say that we've lost that. We've lost the ability to say, oh, well, this is fact,
Hmm.
and we don't know what fact is. I mean, with such a splintered reality, I would say, in the world, based on mostly just based on media, a lot of input, a lot of information, some of it disinformation, and just whatever it is. It's just a lot of confusion.
Hmm.
Um, you know, One of the things you talk about is um, this not good enough schema,
Hmm.
that high performers and just people have. Um,
Yeah.
and you want to kind of give permission to, to address that.
Yeah, absolutely. So to knit together a few things here, communication is really massive. Communication within our body, within our cells is what keeps us alive. Communication between, how the brain is functioning, within the brain, how it's functioning. And that communication gets shut down by the separate reality. And inside of the separate reality is not good enough, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're connected to everything and you really actually believe that and are living that, then there's not any space for not good enough because that's like saying all that's ever been created is not enough if you really are that connected. So it's taking the not good enough conversation to a whole nother level, but we're not going to get to the bottom of an emotion with the mind and with talking about it. So how we get there is really unique. So for context, I know that you know about my work, but for the listeners, we offer absolutely world-class pioneering neuro neurofeedback therapy, neurotechnology to change how people's brains actually work in real time in a laboratory. So we're not just studying what's happening, we're helping to create different neural pathways faster than the mind can perceive. And we can get such astonishing change that people honestly can't believe what they just walked through, like how easeful it was.
Yeah.
But we're also doing that with the technology of understanding how the being communicates with itself. And so inside of the connection to the real understanding about how energy works, about how the mind is working, about the schemas that we're living inside of, but also then just practices and tools and methods that we have. We bring people into alignment on an emotional and spiritual level. So we bring their brain there, which is a huge piece of it. But
Yeah.
we're bringing their whole being there, and that's really where the tremendous gift is knowing how to open up communication on all of those levels. And when we do that, not good enough doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
It's not getting after it from the psychotherapeutic model of like, well, tell me why you really feel terrible about yourself, which can, I mean, it's okay
Yeah.
to ask that question, but if you stay there long enough, you're reinforcing it.
Yeah, and we're just at that point we're just having an intellectual conversation.
That's right.
And a lot of us, like when I started doing meditation and peak performance and all that stuff, a lot of it I would hear, that's where I first started hearing mindset. And
Hmm.
you think to yourself, well, I understand intellectually. It's like saying,
Hmm.
do you understand right from wrong? Or do you
Hmm.
understand that eating, a certain foods are going to cause a certain result? It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I understand that intellectually, but I have to change my physical state of being,
That's right.
like, tell us a little bit about, some of the gentle breath practice,
Oh, yeah.
that people can do.
Yeah, I love talking about that. That's available, by the way, for a free download to anybody if you want to go to the website. That's holonexperience.com. So there's a practice that people can learn, maybe for the first time, eyes closed. The meditation that I offer is about 20 minutes long. Definitely do it eyes closed your first time. But after that, you're essentially just engaged. You can engage this breath at any time. And the breath does two things. Well, it does almost everything if you really look at what those two things do. But the two foundational things that it does is it brings a neurobiological safety into the body because we can't think safe thoughts. It's like somebody screaming at you to
Yeah.
calm down. Like it doesn't actually work to just think I'm safe. Like maybe a little, but not really, because that's a thought. And
Right.
that's happening in the prefrontal cortex, and the unsafe is happening. It actually starts before the amygdala. A lot of people blame the amygdala. It actually starts way back into the cerebellum. And the cerebellum is as mammal as you can get,
Yeah.
the structure of the brain. So, the first thing we do is create that neurobiological safety. And then the second thing that we do is create the knowing and the embodied experience of the interconnectedness, right? Which is different than saying, sure, we are all one. Like that sounds like a really nice prayer, or that sounds like a really nice motto. You can put that on your wall, but how do you live it? And so be able to heal that separatist feeling, to be able to come into that sense of the interconnectedness, it's a different level to actually know it and live it and literally breathe it. And so this practice brings that in through the breath. And it's simple. It's easy.
Yeah. And how um when safety returns to the brain and body, what is happening? What is Describe the science here. What's
Sure.
happening when we start to feel safe?
So there's just like you and I look different. Each person's brain is different, but I will speak in general terms.
Hmm.
Um, in general, what happens when we have safety is that we can have real connection and real communication inside of the brain. When there's an unsafety, it's not necessarily just the limbic system, which again often gets blamed for things. It's true that the limbic system or that old mammal or reptilian brain can just be going bananas, right? And that can pull some resources from our ability to utilize our mirror neurons, which means actually connect with how people are feeling around us. If we're in enough of a fight or flight freak out mode, or a fawn even, we may not know how somebody else around us is doing because we don't have the electrical and the blood flow that's supposed to be happening in certain areas of the brain. So it can be a real starving of things like emotional connection, or it can be a starving of things like like the executive function. So our ability to make, critical judgments or just have rational thought, our ability to sort out what's important and what's not important in the Salian mode network is also hugely dictated by how much fear we have. But the other way that fear can show up, and I think this is something that the peak performers we see very often, is there'll be a hot spot on the cortex of the brain. And that hot spot can be pulling, let's say, 30% of the actual wattage of the brain. And
Mm.
so if that thing is going, it's almost like it just develops a life of its own and it just keeps on spinning. And so the experience can be somebody that ruminates and worries a lot, fixates on the doomsday about the future, or what are people thinking about me, or oh no, what if something bad is about to happen? And that kind of particular level of fear can be really debilitating and at the same time seen in super high performers. So a lot of our executives come through. Part of the reason that they're successful, I guess, in a negative way or a unfortunate way, is because of that,
Mm.
because it creates a massive drive, that fear. But then what they learn and what their brain learns very directly is how not to run that kind of fear, how to operate different on a neurological level. The brain itself learns that, not the person. I mean, we do teach that, but the brain learns it directly
Yeah.
through the brain work. And then now they have a different option. They have a different reality where they can be driven by their passion, which feels very, very different, right? Because I think a lot of times we are taught basically, again, societally, that working hard and kind of sweat till you bleed and, the whole the whole thing,
Yeah.
like that's what is good and that's what's expected. And neurologically, it's actually a massive hindrance. And people, when they align with their passion, what they do is they drop into their ease. They let go of that fear, and they're driven from a whole nother place, and they get more done, but with more ease, instead of more meaning trying to make more with nothing, which I think a lot of
Yeah.
us can, a lot of society right now is feeling really burned out, really, really
Yeah.
past. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think we don't believe in ease so much
Hmm.
anymore. And to the point you just made, we believe that even though people can say work smarter, not harder, that's again an intellectual idea.
It is.
We
It's a really
still
well said.
feel,
Yes.
yeah, we
Mhm.
still feel like are we doing enough?
That's right.
You
Underneath,
know,
there's that same question, am I enough?
am I
Right?
enough?
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
um, and then also the world is so absurd. And, I use humor as the whole premise of the show is that we can't deny reality, but we can laugh in the face of reality. And
Hmm.
with the absurdity that we witness every day on various, levels,
Hmm.
um, what does it take what does it take in a given moment uh to kind of center ourselves amidst just ridiculousness.
Yeah. This is a really important question because what you're really asking, I think, is how do we remember that we're inside of something that makes more sense than it ever makes sense when we're looking at it up close? So I'll say that a different way.
Yeah, yeah,
The zoom out is essential. The zoom out, there's been so many moments in our past. Let's say we're having a freak out moment right now. There's been so many freak out moments in the past. And guess what? Everything ended up great. Like where we're at right now is actually, we're okay, right?
yeah.
So being able to stabilize inside of that, but that's a bit of a thought in a way, but it can be a helpful thought. It's a better thought than the perpetuating of the freak out thoughts, right?
Hmm.
Like, wait a minute, probably this is all going to work out. And not only am I a human, but I am, I think, a timeless soul on an endless journey. And I am having a
Yeah.
moment right now that is here for reflection. And so maybe I can get just that little bit of space between me and the experience right now and just remember that. And then maybe inside of that space, I can engage this Holon breath, or maybe I can remember a moment of gratitude. Okay, wait, now I have a little bit more breathing room, but being able to not basically continue to buy in on the illusion or buy in on that it is terrible. There are definitely, I'm not saying that I'm condoning or that there aren't horrible things that are happening right now collectively or that they're not happening for us individually in certain moments. But can we get enough space to know that there is a fundamental okayness that things maybe are, let's say, breaking down to break through rather than, it just being the terrible look that it is. And being able to have those kind of thoughts come in, it requires that little bit of space to be able to zoom out to that biggest perspective.
Can you think of a moment in your life when things were so absurd and haphazard that you felt that you were outside of yourself in some way?
Where I went way over my threshold.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally. I mean, I haven't had the sweetest and easiest of life. The thing that pops into my head first is it's 2020, it's March. I just rented a beach house, the top floor of a house. My son and I just moved in. There's beautiful ocean waves, and then COVID hits, right?
yeah,
And at that same moment, I realized we had a massive mold problem that had
yeah,
actually just bloomed. The prior tenant had a leak and it wasn't handled. And so, anyhow, I'm at this position of lockdown. There's helicopters flying over because they thought that the beach was unsafe. Remember that?
yeah,
And so it's really noisy. I'm very sensitive to mold, and I'm not allowed to leave the house. And I don't know why I don't know what's happening, right? Like we
yeah.
didn't know yet in March of 2020 what COVID was
That's
or what
right.
this meant. So it was definitely, I mean, that's an over the edge kind of moment. And being able to step into the perspective of, I don't know if this is helpful for folks or not, but I don't actually fear death.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't have any sense of fear of that. And I think that subconsciously a lot of people are afraid of that. And
yeah,
so being able to conquer the fear of something that seems so insurmountable is the way that I think we can create freedom, the way that we can create forgiveness for our own past sometimes, or forgiveness for others who have wronged us. When we can overcome those things, we create a massive amount of space inside of ourselves. And with that space, we have the working resources and the power neurologically, cognitively, emotionally to be able to find our way through further things, other things that are hard. We can find our way through them with ease. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that's where you were headed with that, but that's
Yeah,
just the
yeah.
story that
No,
I found that
no.
came up.
And I think, by the way, thank you for that, because I also feel that over the last several minutes, we've been really talking about fear
Hmm.
and give it creating a little space
That's right.
between our fear. Like you pointed out, we're sitting here. I'm in an office. You're in an office. We're
Right.
on the internet. We're on Zoom and we're having a conversation. And
Hmm.
yes, there's a lot going on in the world,
Hmm.
but we are okay.
We're okay. We're okay right now. And it's okay to
You
be
know,
okay. I want to bring that one forward too, because I
ah,
think a lot of people are feeling guilty if they're happy right now, or they're guilty if
mm,
they're having a moment that's calm when they know so many people are in massive suffering. And I would say that if we make ourselves suffer, we're not actually helping. We're creating more suffering. So when we allow
yeah,
ourselves to be inside of a good space, we're building resources inside of ourselves that hopefully then can help the collective, right? Like
yeah,
if everybody's drowning, who's the lifeguard, right?
yeah,
So it's okay to feel happy and it's okay to feel grateful and present and all of those kind of things, even when others are suffering. And it's okay also to have suffering moments because people are suffering. But how can we process that through with efficiency? How can we move that through so that we have then the capacity to address what's going on?
yeah. Yeah, and also it comes back to that community, that being in community. If
Hmm.
we are focusing on solutions,
Hmm.
then we're seeing, okay, I do have the benefit of sitting in an office and I do have the benefit of having, food and water. So my job then is to focus on solutions for those who don't, for those who are in the midst of chaos. How do we kind of stabilize
That's right.
the world in that way? And I tell my kids that too about, um, reacting to things that are happening in the world. It's like, okay, well, what are you going to do with that?
Right.
Just being angry or just, you know, commenting on online or engaging with people who are trolling online. Nobody's doing anything in
Right.
that
We're just feeding
circumstance.
the anger fire,
Yeah,
right? And that's
yeah,
so that's the thing is that we have this other option that I think a lot of people are not as aware of, which is to transmute, to change the very core of our own emotional responses so that we feel a sense of freedom inside of it. Because if we're locked, going back again to the brain, if we're locked inside of anger or fear or retaliation or panic or any of those things, we literally don't have the most important faculties. We don't have our intuitive capacity for sure if we're in that, and we don't have our
yeah,
intellectual capacity. So we're just basically at that point kind of rendered into the same abyss of upset and chaos and upheaval that we're seeing, even if we're at home experiencing it by ourselves internally. Right? We don't
yeah,
have to be in the middle of the throes of something to be having that level of chaos internally. So if we can allow ourselves to move through that, then even if we're not all, because we can't always be taking action towards helping either, but we are preparing ourselves to be able to take action. And when action is needing to be taken, we see it, we can perceive it, and we can then be efficient inside of it. So this isn't be lazy, plain a coda happy, pretend that you're okay, and therefore everything is okay. That's not true. But it's also don't go into the chaos and upheaval where you're basically not helpful at that point. Because we really do need to lend our strength with each other, but it's not necessarily in every moment that we can be in that action. And if we believe neurologically that we have to be in action in every moment, that will create one of those hot spots that I was talking about. And that's 30%
yeah,
of our horsepower, which means a lot less benefit. It's more than a 30% reduction in our output because there's major faculties that are shut down. So it's actually on behalf of greater good that we then hopefully can do this transmutation at a deep
yeah,
level.
yeah. Um, First of all, I would love for you to tell the audience where they can find you and find more information. And
Hmm.
then finally, if we could maybe close out with uh, a condensed version of that breathing exercise, some kind of
Oh,
just an
sure.
example of that. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, totally. So the best place right now is the website, which is holonexperience.com, Holon experience.com. Holon is a word that speaks to the interconnectedness. It's kind of like hologram. And yeah, and then I'd love to do so if anybody's listening in the car, just obviously don't close your eyes and maybe just save this for later, or just listen along for curiosity. But I'll invite us to just briefly close our eyes and then feel the spine, feel at the base of the spine, the sacrum, which is that triangle bone, triangle shaped bone that's flat at the bottom of the spine. And then just beneath that is our tailbone. And we talked about being mammals, Hersh. So here is our tailbone. We actually have a tail. It's not very big, not like a dog, but let's just tune into it. And I'd love for people to see, feel, or imagine a softening or a color or a warmth, a relaxation in that area. And maybe you can even imagine that you have some sort of a mammal's tail just for fun. It could be a dog's tail, monkey, whatever feels right. And I'd love for you to allow that tail, just like when a dog is happy, we know how they're feeling. Let's allow for that tail to drop or come back up a little bit rather than being tucked between our legs, which is where most of us live. Good. And that creates, and you may feel a slight shift in your breath, or it may feel a little, some different warmths or sensations, or, but just coming into touch with that tail actually starts to change the neurobiological feelings and perceptions of safety. Good. And then again, we'll be really playful. I'd love for you to just feel your skin as it wraps around your entire body. And then there are trillions of pores of skin on that. And please just pretend, see, feel, or imagine that you can actually sense all of those pores of skin. Good. And then I'd love for you to, on your next inhale, just pretend, just play that you could inhale through your skin. See if you can see or feel or imagine this inhalation. And then the exhale goes through the nose, or it's not tracked at all. Good. So we just take these very gentle sips. We're not efforting with this breath, we're receiving. We're allowing a feeling, even if we're just imagining it, of the breath moving over the skin. We allow ourselves to play like children. We allow ourselves to receive and to try something new. Good. And then at the same time that we're having that breath come through the skin, I'll invite you to be simultaneously aware of your tailbone. Good. And just one or two more gentle breaths here. Inhaling through the skin and releasing the exhale through the nose or not paying attention to it at all. Good. All right, wonderful. And then I'll just invite softly to reopen eyes. And then we can, as you're ready, when you're ready, we can check in and hear how that felt for you.
That was wonderful, Amy. That was, and I had no kind of preconception of what that would be like.
Hmm.
As I said, I meditate, daily. So I have some, I have familiarity and
Yeah.
experience with guided meditation, but I really feel like it created space both through play,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
love that aspect of it. Just
Hmm.
let's just pretend.
Hmm.
Pretend that you can breathe through your skin.
That's right.
You know, pretend that you have a puppy tail or
Exactly.
whatever. Just, it's okay to pretend. And I think
Yeah.
that gives us permission
Hmm.
to experience it in whatever
That's
way
right.
we want. So I found it, very, very liberating, and also kind of opened a door to doing more of that. So thank you.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, that creative play is really important for us. May we never outgrow that. That's when we get old and crusty and we can remain young no matter what our age. And also creative play might help to boost a little bit of the theta waves in the brain, right? So it's really important to be in that. It's a part of our vitality. And then the meditative aspect is more of the alpha. So that's the brain waves that are associated with meditation. So all the amazing benefits of that and what we're doing with that when I make it as light and easy as I can because I know I have to trick adults into relaxing. It's like it's actually a skill.
Yeah.
And to being able to feel themselves, it's actually a challenge because we've been so trained out of it. But what I've seen is that people that are non-meditators feel like they can finally drop in with this. And people who are meditators have a deep appreciation for it. And so we can do it with our eyes closed, just like we did, is the best, I think, for learning it. And then after that, you can do it eyes open. So let's say you're having
Mm.
a difficult conversation or you're feeling a little tight, your body doesn't feel great or whatever it is. And you can just shift into that mode, first tailbone and then breath. And it will help you to find the right words. It will help you to calm rather than react. It will help, just an amazing eyes open, kind of a living, breathing meditation in that way. That's actually changing how your energy anatomy is working. It's changing how your neurobiology are working. So I'm really grateful. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share it. It is a bit of a risk as a host. You have no idea what I'm going to do next. And I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Well, my pleasure, and thank you so much, Dr. Amy Albright, for being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been fun.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.